Welcome back, everybody, for our next presentation. Our next presenter is the founder and principal of the Australian Close Encounters Research Network, or ACERN. She's the co-founder and director of the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters, or FREE. She is a former nurse, midwife, counselor, hypnotherapist, and Reiki master. She's an international speaker, researcher, and author of Awakening: How Extraterrestrial Contact Can Transform Your Life, and The New Human: Awakening to Our Conscious I'll get it right. Hang on. New Human: Awakening to Our Cosmic Heritage. Thank you. She has produced 2 award-winning documentaries, Expressions of ET Contact, a Visual Blueprint, and Expressions of ET Contact, a Communication and Healing Blueprint. She's also produced 5 series of meditation CDs, such as Inner Alchemy, which you can find on www.newmindrecords.com. She is recognized internationally as one of Australia's leading researchers of encounters with non-human intelligences. She's lectured in countries all over the world, and she has appeared in several documentaries, including one with her son, I believe, My Mum Talks, produced in Australia by SBS. Also, ET Contact, They Are Here, Australian Skies, and Force and Consciousness. Her research explores the encounter phenomenon from a multidimensional consciousness perspective. Her research suggests that star visitors have orchestrated many complex multidimensional programs to upgrade and activate the consciousness of Homo sapiens. She believes this is a global phenomenon, and the recent generations of humans, often called indigos or crystals, some labeled as ADHD, dyslexic, or autistic, etc., are already awake and conscious of their star origins and their Earth mission to help activate the consciousness of humanity. Her presentation today is going to address many big questions. I believe that it will also have an experiential aspect to it. So keep your mind open to the sounds and the images and the things that you're about to hear about, because they just may trigger thoughts and feelings and memories in you as well. So please join me in welcoming Mary Rodwell.
Hello, everyone, and many apologies. My computer decided it wasn't too keen on allowing me to play these frequencies that may tell you something on another level. Why I've called this presentation The Keys to DNA Activation of Humanity is really what I'm talking about is an awakening that is going across the planet now. And how is that awakening happening? For many of those that are having experiences, they feel and have sensed it's something to do with our DNA. And sometimes this awakening can happen over a number of years, and sometimes it can happen almost instantly, where someone's awareness of their multidimensional selves comes into play, and it changes their lives forever. And so what I'm going to discuss is some of the ways this happens, and also what may be part of this activation. And there are many ways those that have had this activation or this awakening have continued to activate others through their experiences. So let's get on with it. Triggers of consciousness, expressions of ET contact. This particular image is a beautiful one by Lloyd Canning, an artist experiencer, and he calls this existence. So many of those that are artists are bringing in the frequencies through this particular medium, through their artwork. And I'm going to talk and show you some of the artwork that activates through its frequencies many people who are ready to wake up. This is another beautiful piece of art by Lloyd, which I love because he's talking about the connection we have to our other world, outer, if you like, world visitors, whether you call them extraterrestrials, interdimensionals, extradimensionals, transdimensionals, or those coming from our future. It is about them visiting us from both the past and are now still with us in our future. So how does this trigger of consciousness actually occur? It can happen through sightings, downloads of information through encounters, past life connections and recall of being one of the ancestors themselves. And I'm talking about ancestors that are not from this planet. Music can be downloaded that acts as triggers. Artwork is also what I've talked about. Strange writing, some start to do strange scripts and symbols. Some start speaking unusual languages we call light languages or universal languages. There are healing frequencies that come when people do energetic work. They often will bring in the frequencies for healing. There's channeling and telepathic communications. The sacred sites that we visit often have these frequencies as activation as well. Crop circles are another activating medium. Shamanic encounters, near-death experiences, hypnosis can even activate that part of that awakening. So let's take this another step. We've been visited throughout history by what were termed the gods. Well, are they gods, or are they in fact these intelligences that have visited us all through history? As you can see, this lovely blue being by the little girl, Kathy at 9, very much looks similar to the Indian god Krishna. This is one of the major ways many people are activated, through their sightings or interactions with non-human intelligences. This is Carlos Diaz and images of the light ship in Mexico. And the other image to the right of the screen is NASA leaking a video of a craft because they know that we're being visited. Arrival of the gods. This is one again from Lloyd Canning. He said that in 2004, all of a sudden, what can only be described as a spaceship went over my van. I saw the entire undercarriage, which was metal. It was completely silent. So where does this begin? I'm asked all the time about agendas. What are the agendas of these particular intelligences? And I'm going to go into a little bit of that through this presentation in the sense of what this may mean. Dr. Francis Crick, I've mentioned many times, said something very profound as a molecular biologist. He says this: for life to form by chance is mathematically virtually impossible. The immensity of complex, coded, and precisely sequenced information is staggering. The DNA evidence speaks of intelligent information-bearing design. They program the molecules so that when we reached a certain level of intelligence, we would be able to access their information, and they could therefore teach us about ourselves. What if dormant DNA isn't junk? Because this is the interesting thing, is that we apparently only have 97% of DNA is non-functioning or non-coded, called junk DNA. What if it isn't junk? And this is the whole point of many experiencers saying that the dormant DNA is actually encoded with information whose function has yet to be discovered. What if there are more than 2 strands of DNA, but up to 12 strands lying dormant in a subtle energy spectrum? These are the questions we can ask. And certainly the experiencers, as they download information or have interactions with these beings, as Dr. Lena Olson, a molecular biologist, has had with numerous otherworldly beings or off-world beings. Human DNA has the ability to transform, she says. The information of the donors and their background is there, a hidden key, unlike PC programmers hide their work. This key can be activated. The programmers know the person is ready to be contacted. The activated ones spread a signal to wake others up. I feel, she says, they are speeding this up. And I think this is really significant because research now indicates a second DNA code. Is this what has been previously perceived as junk DNA? A second secret DNA code has been discovered with and is written on top of the DNA code scientists had already cracked. This has enormous implications for health and consciousness. Dr. Batchelor, who is a medical doctor who had her own activation some years ago in India. This is what she has come to understand. I feel intuitively we're changing from carbon-based to crystalline. DNA is changed by frequency. The new DNA looks golden, as if this is inserted, the rest of the DNA lights up for abilities. She said, I believe the new children that I've written about in The New Human are already activated. People don't realize the matrix is galactic. The gods of old religions are really multidimensional galactic beings. And now we know from scientific research, these Russian scientists actually are also saying that DNA can be altered and reprogrammed by words and frequencies, but it has to be the correct language. So what is the correct language? The vibrational behavior of DNA demonstrates living chromosomes function like a holographic computer. They manage to modulate frequency patterns onto laser ray, and it influenced the DNA frequency and thus the genetic information. So we've got science that's giving us a clue in how this actually happens. So let's look at what those frequencies are. As Dr. Marie Batchelor is saying, she works with these frequencies through her hands and her voice and through the light language she uses. She describes herself as a DNA galactic rewirer. That is what she's doing. DNA upgrades and activation through a galactic connection. This is a quantum reality. It's science. I'm aware I'm getting into the DNA and it's it's subatomic. It's changed by frequency. And one of her clients, who was a scientist herself, actually had a session with Dr. Batchelor. And she said, I can see the matrix and what happened to the codes. I'm like Lucy in the movie. We are in the matrix. She saw craft transmitting frequencies to the people, codes like barcodes being put into their heads. Everyone is programmed. It changed her life and she saw things differently. And the new DNA looked golden. So frequencies. Dr. Nikola Tesla talked about visual, how frequencies are part of who and what we are. We are frequencies. So let's look at how these frequencies come to our planet and affect us through art, sightings, energy work, music, scripts, language, etc. Quantum reality. So we've got here how these frequencies will affect us. Out-of-body experiences and astral traveling is part of how this can happen. Perceiving spirits, non-human entities, orbs, energy fields. We notice after this activation, heightened intelligence, downloads, new information and knowledge, heightened senses such as telepathy, clairvoyance, clairaudience, past life recall, past lives on Earth and also on other planets and dimensions, being able to start using moving objects with the mind, producing scripts, strange symbols, scripts, artwork, light language, frequencies, the ability to affect matter and mind influencing, remote sensing. All of these abilities start to manifest and are activated. A 15-year-old explains how she was activated and remembers her origins at 15.
At 15 years old, I made my consciousness shift because I came here with a wake-up call encoded in my DNA to wake up at a determined point in my life, which is something that many star children can with. And so I started to experience memory recalls of extraterrestrial contact, extraterrestrial incarnations, my own star system connections or expansions, also great expansion of my own psychic abilities. I became highly sensitive when it was with the external reality. I will be able to read more strongly the people's thoughts. I will be able to read their own energy, to read their own emotions, to read their DNA. You know, their own genetics, their own connection to their star systems. And well, it can be very frustrating sometimes for star children because we are very sensitive. So I will recommend that if you pick up a negative energy, a low frequency energy, because you're very sensitive, I will recommend you that you do not fight the emotion, that you do not fight that energy.
So Marina there is speaking about her wake-up call and how a lot of her abilities were activated as she became more aware of who she was. So let's look at another way many people are being activated and woken up. And this is through what we call the orbs. That you'll see this picture on the left with the owls. This is the ghost messenger from the constellation of Delphinius. That is an indigenous piece of artwork where they're connecting the spirits to the orbs. And to the right is an image of what was apparently an owl until it changed into a grey. So those are the screens that many of these intelligences use. There we have a contact through an orb of light. So many of these intelligences, particularly the interdimensional ones, will come in a ball of light. And now I would like you to hear a little bit about Jimmy Jones, who was a US Army pilot. He's now retired, and his interaction with a blue ball of light that gave him the secret of light and direct connection to the Akashic records. You can hear a little bit of his story now.
I can't describe the beauty that was coming off of this light. I was like, what is that beauty, that blue light, right? It was sitting nestled in between two hills. And Jess is the first one that pointed it out. She was the first one to see it. And our exit, it was a mountain exit, exit 264. And it actually backtracked back to the blue light after we got off the interstate. And as we passed that blue light, I heard something say, and I was driving, I heard something say, here he comes. I heard plain as day, right? Like telepathically, here he comes. And I turned to Vanessa and I said, did you hear that? And immediately after, the best way I can describe it is that we went through like a time wave, just like a wall, and it slowed down, a warble, yeah. It's just like a microsecond of, and then back into normal. And we were driving along, and we got back to the house, and I told Vanessa, I said, Vanessa, we got back, we were going to lay in bed, and I said, Vanessa, I think that light did something to me, right? And sure enough, and I'm not trying to be too dramatic, I'm just dramatic. I'm a Southern kid, so I'm a little dramatic. So, but yeah, but we got back and a beam of blue light in our bedroom, a beam of light coming from space shot into our bedroom. And I looked over at Vanessa, we just got in bed, and I said, did you see that? And she said, yes. And as soon as she said yes, a second beam came through from space. And we have a beautiful view of heavens. Beautiful view of heavens out here. Nice big picture windows. And it came through. Then an orb of electromagnetic, a ball. Like an electromagnetic orb, a ball lightning, right? Manifested in a corner outside of our bedroom. But the wall disappeared, and we could see this ball of orb light. It was just an orb of lightning, just sitting like a star, right? Just like a star.
Since that time, Jimmy's had lots of experiences, and this is what he was aware of. He understood we'd entered the Aquarian age. He understood the Hindu cycles of time. He understood God is literally light and appeared in all cultures. The world is eternal. He understood why all ancient cultures worshipped the sun and orientated their temple complexes to Orion. This was what actually happened. The orb spoke to him. And here you can see on the right, as I slow down some of the video, there are frequencies in the orbs themselves. And this is what Jimmy discovered himself. Light is consciousness. The world is a fractal of light. DNA upgrades are via light. He said, I now know what Tesla knew. Strange things have continually occurred since this event, such as lights flickering, bells ringing, a tornado of physical orbs appearing in his home. That is part of his experience. So what else is it that's going on that's activating humanity? And it's often with the new generations of human. This little boy explained to his mum, I learn more on the ships than I do at school. There are blue ones. I've seen them in my mind's eye. They float, not work, and walk and become invisible. Other ways of activation can happen through different phenomena. This is a very unusual one, a fire circle. The Aboriginal or Indigenous person elder told this lady on this block in Australia that she was on a sacred site, and she was told that that certain unusual phenomena would happen a few days later. There was a fire around the paddock that left these unusual markings, very similar to the markings on this particular Indigenous marking tattoos. Fire circles are from the past. The ancients set fire to grasslands to find the markings for their ceremonies. They were connected to space and space aliens. This image, a couple of days later, not only was that fire circle leaving the strange markings, in the morning there was a friend that took this strange light in the paddock, and UFOs are seen regularly. Many ways that different people are being activated. So let's look at the way some of the new children and older individuals are now being activated through light language.
Sua set eleaka e suluun tuk ewe elo amana e sala am at elo ala onkis susun ma etala elo lo tu ki shisea elo at sa osaritam mana e kuleate su shese e mono tu kiawa hark it sunumu et ula akit sesa ese sala tu shisan. It doesn't exactly translate into English. The key to this language is that it's not transmitting data verbally through the mind. It's transmitting images through the voice. And dolphins do the same thing.
So that's how dolphins communicate. And that's a very interesting bit of information, because I remember speaking to a 7-year-old little boy who said to me that he could speak dolphin. And would I like to hear it? And he then proceeded to make all the clicks of the dolphin. Star languages may be specific to Terran languages, Marina told me. She said Arcturian is similar to Japanese, Chinese, and Vietnamese. Andromedan is similar to Spanish and the one she speaks. Syrian sounds like Egyptian, Norwegian, or Nordic. What I spoke, she said, was reaching oneness in this light as a collective consciousness. So it does indicate that we have brought our languages in from our star heritage. And of course, they've changed over time. What has been fascinating for me is that the new children coming in are also speaking these languages. And I'll play just a very short indicator of an 8-year-old that was sent. This was audio sent to me from the UK of an 8-year-old speaking one of these languages. What's fascinating for me is that the youngsters are coming out with these languages, and I'll place them more in a minute. But Emma Strong from the US speaking the language with the orbs, and she said sometimes it will spontaneously come out of my mouth when I'm speaking English. And you'll see the orbs in the picture as well as she's speaking the language.
Okay, we're going to speak just a little bit about, I'm going to take in the language this morning. Ochanda kosudre chishira manuto chishira. Oske pato ya. O maya da to great chishira because koshira manada. We are shook by here. On the Madura Shera, on the Madokasi Basel Kitchen Manada, Kushika Basel Legend, rest of rubbish, and Rakesh, Dermatatory. You go Ashumba. Osako Akakala teacher running, Okusia, Jodotation, Utokalechi, Ukapatili Marakushi, the Basel Kitchen, and the Tai Yo Ashu, and the Totoi, Atasatake, Asatake, Ashio, Monologisha, Ukachitara Bo Akasaya.
What is fascinating there is you're seeing all the orbs activating and around her as she's speaking the language. But this isn't just happening in the European countries or America. It's also happening in China. This particular lady who had an experience where she saw a person playing an instrument in the clouds. The name of the music is Please Welcome My Friend. When she woke up, she wanted to play the piano, but didn't have one. Her friends were surprised that she could play the piano by hammering in an unusual way. Chinese people and Taoism believe such music was from the sky. In Chinese, sky also means heaven out of earth. But look at the unusual tones and frequencies this is being played. And now let's go to the children and how they have connected that to the DNA. 11-year-old was sleeping, his name is Matthew, was sleeping when this being came to him. He said they felt good, but they were light grey, big heads. He saw himself being lifted to the ceiling, and then he blacked out. He woke up in a dome, scared, and blacked out, and woke again to see the beings around a control panel type desk. They were communicating in another language, telepathically, which he could hear. He focused on the control panel, which seemed to be sounds, which he said he felt was altering his DNA. These sounds became his first of 5 songs called Decoding Human DNA, the first of the second five songs, completed within 3 days, and his last song, Arrival, which I hope I have time to play you also. It was recorded 2 weeks prior. This one I'm playing now is called Decoding DNA. At no time did Matthew practice them. He named each song before playing it as though he knew what was coming next. He said, the songs I need to give to people to wake them up. And this is the one called Decoding DNA. What is fascinating is that each one is a package in itself. I've only been able to play you one small part of what Matthew has done. This one's called Growing Within Yourself. Matthew says these songs are a process and need to be listened to from the beginning. Each song was done on the spot using sound to create a vibration to heal or adjust one's frequency. Many who've heard them feel the sense of shifts in their awareness and understanding. Because it was so fascinating, Matthew's experiences, I sent his music to Juliana Oka, a musician, artist experiencer, who comments on, well, we called him Arthur, but he's now Matthew. Arthur was a pseudonym for him, although he now is owning to being Matthew, which is wonderful. She said herself, when she was taken over by entities, she felt something similar to what he's saying. It's an amazing power I received, but I was drained and crashed afterwards, as he is. Definitely he's contacted by aliens or master musical spirits. Her experiences happened in childhood and went far beyond. She is a celebrated violinist who lives in California. She said it was amazing composition. It was genius. She liked the music a lot and believed he's being helped by master alien spirits. Her own experiences, One Life and Many Worlds, is out now. And she also is an artist herself. She's had information and awareness of her otherworldly beings where she's met them and also directed her path. My experiences happened in childhood in Japan. This male angelic being flew in front of me. He had long hair and soft, shining golden gown. He played violin, flying and dancing in the air. He showed me techniques that were not usual for the violin. So she was shown a whole new way of using music as these frequencies. This is some of her wonderful artwork. Again, she was never trained as an artist. She's just downloaded this information and this artwork quite spontaneously, never having any artistic training. This is more of it. I found I could also paint. No one taught me, Juliana said. Amazing, amazing artwork. Again, bringing in the frequencies. So does sound change our reality? And this is an interesting one. This happened many years ago now when I was in Adelaide, to show you how music and frequency can bring in many of these wonderful intelligences. This happened when Darren gave a musical performance using sacred Hebrew words, demonstrating sacred language can create a portal. And I was actually there when this happened. And I'm going to play you a little bit of what he played and then how it changed through these digital photographs, the energy of where we were.
Family of God,
Now look at how the energy has changed in the room. This is the first photograph as he's playing. Here's the next photograph as he's playing that. You can see this strange light. This has all changed. And then it changes once again until it completely changes. very much as some of the light beings may actually appear. And I always felt this particular photograph of this gorgeous Italian young lady who wanted a photograph in my home, and one of the images, as many people are finding now, these beings are making themselves known through the digital photographs. Ribbons of light beings. I astrally visited with a ship with many other souls. There were a huge variety of beings. They were playful, incredibly wise, were able to shift their form at will from humanoid shape to a ribbon of light. As I saw them, they seemed to be composed of effervescent bubbles of energy. I'm not going to be able to show you much of this because I want to get through the rest of it, but a female farmer suddenly began to speak and paint with universal language she'd never painted before, the painting in one-line string, and I'll just show you a very brief clip of it. All these are pictures, strange pictures.
这画是一笔画呢，还是不是一笔画？
好像是一笔，是的，是一笔画传的。
这个一笔吗？不停吗？这个下来？
对，不停。像就是那种大的吧，待会儿我发一下那种大的下来给你们看。像那种大的嘛，好多都是就是一笔传的。
This is some of the drawings that she's done. She was uneducated, never taught art or painting, no idea what she's speaking, but the language appears to be random. She calls it a universal language. The painting is one-line string. In other words, she never takes her pencil off the paper as she's drawn them. Here is some more here. She feels she's connected to Krishna when she plays the piano. She gets told things about the gods. The source of the information from Krishna loves her human children and forgot the reincarnation, past lives on the it's the Brahman religion, galaxy of billions of years ago. She believes she's one of the gods before she descended on earth as a messenger. So this is happening in China also. But we're now talking about New Zealand, where this young man who's a teenager has done many different artwork and symbols. And she said the language he speaks is more an accurate representation of the individual soul vibration. Symbols and scripts are the ancient forms for communicating volumes of information without having to read pages and pages. Tracy Taylor speaks about this. It's one of the steps from words to telepathic communication. It bypasses linear space-time, Tracy says. The Arcturian language from Antonio, I will play a short piece from him.
Summa tataka parakateka seta takata summa taka retika tinga takatunsa roka tingo taka parakatunsa taka parakatunsa tataka matata so ringa tataka paraka rikingi ka kopataka rakapataka parakataka singa taka shung patakitin siktika parakatunsa kuna pakataki shung patak sura patataki
I wish I had time to play you more, but that will give you some idea of some of them sound very similar, some of them sound very different. This lady is talking about her ability to see UFOs in the sky. And again, not well educated, never learnt about painting, never learnt about singing. Again, this is happening globally. This is my point. Light language is important to our species. This particular experiencer said this is one of the artworks that it was done by this particular person. The Chinese say light language is multicultural to help the nation become more advanced, to be used by people who are gifted to exchange further information how to advance. The beings channeled are a collective consciousness. The origin is Jupiter. Not the surface of Jupiter, but existing inside Jupiter and all the densities in space-time continuum. The connection between heaven and the beings, lifespan, these beings said is 8,000 Earth years, that Jima are studying humanity. And I personally know of a 12-year-old boy in Australia who recalled a previous life living under the surface of Jupiter.
现在各国呢也都在说这种话，这种话的意思也就是说多文字、多文化。那个什么高和什么那个是还有是那个是我们祖国。
So this is what is, to me, quite fascinating. So what is going on? Hypercommunication. It should be borne in mind the nature of extraterrestrial communications, that in a majority of instances, star visitors communicate with humans by telepathic transfer of mental images and concepts rather than words and speech. Everything is made up of the same matter, resonating in different harmonics. So the ETs are able to communicate with us, directing thought on subatomic levels, and so activate the subconscious. The symbols are meant to communicate the nature of the macrocosm. Here we have more of the symbols. These ones are from Deborah Lapatina, who speaks and writes star languages. Many of the glyphs are actually formulas on its way to forming matter, says Dr. McGrath, a physicist. What Deborah's saying is, it's hard for me not to sing, or singing the frequencies are an integral part of the transmission. The language carry billions of bits of information in a bridge format. Human language is linear. Speaking, singing light language feels spiral and wave-like. Sensation of being awash with layers of knowing, that is understood, but cannot be articulated in a linear word string. Advanced beings use telepathy or thought transference. Rochelle shares her understanding of her experiences through her healing work, and I'm not going to be able to play all of it, unfortunately, due to the time constraints, but I will give you a bit of an idea of how her experiences, how she was activated and her experiences.
Hi, my name is Rochelle Delia. I've been consciously aware of my extraterrestrial contact now for 8 years, but I've been having contact my whole life. My experiences with extraterrestrials have been quite varied. I have gone through a process now over the past 8 years, and I've come through a lot of the traumatic aspect. And now my experiences have brought me many rewards, particularly in the way of healing abilities, and I myself have changed in a positive way through them. I have a lot of help with healing work. I speak in many different ET languages, and I also write in alien script. These abilities all come quite naturally to me.
How were you aware of the fact that you could heal, and what is your understanding of the healing that you do?
The healing work that I do now has changed and evolved over the years. It first began when I had an experience. I was drawn to go outside of my house at about 3 a.m. and I was looking up at the moon. And when I was looking at the moon, I felt quite strange and felt to close my eyes. When I closed my eyes, I felt lots of different sensations. I felt cool air being blown on my eyes and on my fingertips. I had pin-pricking sensations all over my face. I had the sensation of wind circling my head, and I could feel it clipping my nose as it went past. I also had sound waves that were going into my ear from a great distance, and these repeated over and over. I had tingling sensations all around my head as well. This process went on for some time, and when it stopped, I felt I could open my eyes again. And I felt quite heavy in my body, as if there was someone else in my body. I was then drawn to go inside and lie down on my bed. And when I lay down on my bed, I actually started to perform some sort of surgery on myself. I'd never done this before. I'd never had any experience of healing work either done on myself or performing it on others before. So I had my hands away from my body, and the healing involved minute movements of my fingertips. I was using my fingers, or they felt as though they were pulling what you imagine to be puppet strings. What was fascinating about that in many ways is she talks about the moon and how she had this experience when she was standing there feeling the frequencies.
often what is interesting about what people perceive as the moon can often be a spacecraft. Here is Rochelle doing some healing.
When I work as a healer, I switch from how I normally operate as my human self to my ET self. It might sound a bit strange, but I have been given information about my dual consciousness. I can best describe this as coming into this vehicle having both ET and human characteristics. My human self is very sensitive, very emotional. My ET self is very clinical, very practical, very matter of fact.
I'll show you just quickly a bit of a clip of Rochelle spontaneously doing the scripts.
Can you tell us what you're writing?
Sure. It's really like translating information that has been lost, information that was known by ancient civilizations. I'm not able to give you a more accurate description of this writing. My style is really like a shorthand, if you like. It's probably quite messy. But within each character, again, like the languages, it's really like a block of information in itself. If you were able to get three-dimensional, depiction of each character, because that's how I see each one, that would be much more accurate.
Here we have, again, another script being done by a wonderful
I'm going to try to
lady,
hold this camera
Emma
like
Song.
this, but it'll be shaking and moving, but I don't know how else to get the whole picture in. But this is me writing, and I don't meditate or anything. It just comes in.
I'd like to show you a little bit more of the explanation, but many of those doing the scripts say they feel a frequency or an energy as they're doing it, and even putting their palm over the writing or the script afterwards, they can feel a frequency or an energy. But unfortunately, I can't show you more of that right now. I'd like to just lead you into an interesting experience by Dr. Olson, who talked about being asked whether she should come out and share her experiences. And she had an instant healing from a mantis being who said that she was on track, and if she was to come out, and got a sign. And she actually had an instant healing as the vertebra that she'd had problems with for most of her life rotated itself into the correct position, and she can now swallow without pain. And she called that her sign. She's had healing from cone-headed beings, and I'll just show you
I woke up staring right into the lower body of a small being. I raised my head and upper body from the bed and leaned my head into my right hand. Immediately I focused my eyes on places in the room and wondered what this being looked like. I left my body and went to those places in above and behind the being. I could see my body from above, felt so happy, and then I slowly lowered myself down into my body.
Sorry, I cut you off there. Primarily, again, this is the cone-headed being that she's had many interactions with. But healing is just one of the facets of this. There are others that have what they call this feeling of being a walk-in soul. And I'm just going to briefly cover this right now, because this one is from a Kaza who had many near-death experiences and experienced being a walk-in soul. And she believes now her new soul actually comes from the 13th dimension. She was visited previously. The other soul experienced healing after she was being told that she only had 3 months to live. These light beings healed her, but as time went on, she was not coping very well. And with her 4th pregnancy, she had numerous near-death experiences, and when she became aware that she was actually, a different soul. She's the two children. One refused to eat. He only drank milk until he was 4 because he told her telepathically human food was not good for him. And he never gets sick. This is part of Kaz's doing a healing. These are some of the symbols the children themselves are putting out, which have the same energy and frequency. In the same way, this was a 3-year-old script from the UK saying that he was visited by this wonderful woman who you would actually take him to the craft. I'm sorry, I'm having to rush through this a little bit because I haven't got much time left. Some of the script here is quite fascinating and tidy. There's another script by a lady, Nicola Farmler, who said this script is for those that is the light language and symbols. Peter Smith is another gentleman who has written Quantum Consciousness, but felt that once he'd seen some of the scripts that I was showing, he had his own activation into this artwork here. He said 4 weeks later, the painting arrived piece by piece. He could not believe it had happened. It was the second time he picked up a brush. There is another one. He was told what colors to use, sometimes particles, sometimes waves, and told how he must mix the paint. I'm sorry I'm having to rush through this now because I've only got a few more minutes. Lord Canning, this is some of his artwork, downloading images. In fact, this is one of them where there is a craft in the sky. I'm sorry I'm having to rush through this. The Space Between Spaces. This is another one of his wonderful artwork. And this here is Inner Earth. These wonderful images. E.T. is an artist by Faye Vale, a wonderful lady I met quite a few years ago in England. She was downloading these wonderful artwork and felt many images from Andromeda. She had star people from Neptune, and as they call it, or ether as they call it, planets around Saturn and the moon, which I feel I came from, she said. Overwhelming fascination, attachments to Sirius. She said a collective called the Wise Ones. There are many star systems come together as a council to promote growth and law in the universe. These are the star gods. I'm sorry, I'm having to really rush through these. This is more of this wonderful artwork, which I'm afraid I can't go into now because I won't have the time. But her book is well worth getting. Many others have artwork that they're downloading, which activates like a map or information from astronomy, astrophysics, theology, philosophy. This one from Ceci. Lorraine is a translator who also said it's amazing how they activate portals for her. And this is how she said something that she's been trained. This one is by Terry Mace. He was activated by the artwork. Here we have, he understood group consciousness, codes, ciphers, and also one child of 7 was able to translate these as well. I'm really sorry I'm having to go through these really fast. Also a 7-year-old was translating these pictures from Tracy, which was also information that led to the same as Kip Thorne, the physicist, talked about this. Here's more of Tracy's artwork that she saw and was told she would find would be in Egypt itself at Karnak. Here is some more of her artwork and some of the images in Karnak, very, very similar. And I'm really sorry because I'm almost having to crop circles, scripts, those being taught. This one is the stigmata. There will be change in human consciousness. The energy is heading this way. The energy will repair our DNA and make us complete in who we are. This is what I was trying to tell my mother at 4 years old, Mike Oram. Here we go and have evidence of solar cycles that are hitting the planet now. The hybrids are part of those that are awakened, that realize who they are. These are the crop circles that are also activating people. The energy is heading this way, as Mike Oram, at a young child of 4 in the 50s, told his mother. This is the way the children are changing, and I'm really sorry I'm having to go through this really fast. We're a species in transition to another level. Lee Capitale is talking about the Homo novus is trying to wake up humanity through drawings, music, and sacred sites. Sorry, here we go. Humanity's been at this point 3 times, but we have been knocked off course. This time there's a 95% chance we will make it. And of course, Dolores herself talked about in the convoluted universe, DNA is being expanded to 12, humankind reaches critical mass, the genetics are changing. So activation of humanity. And as Kathy of 9 said, the new human beings have no idea how amazing they are, but they have to believe it first. And we are awaiting arrival. And I'm really sorry. That is... I'm really sorry. I have run out of time, but I think you will get a sense of how this is changing our humanity, how this is changing our society as we evolve and awaken into our cosmic heritage. Hi, I think I can. I've run out of time, so
you have, but you're going straight into question and answer now. And essentially you have up to an hour that you can continue talking about whatever you want to talk about. So I would invite you in the question and answer session to share in more detail anything that you really want to. I mean, oh my God, there was so much information. I can see where you need about 4 hours to talk about this stuff, but it is absolutely fascinating and amazing stuff. And I've had some of these awakening experiences myself over the years, directing me to learn different things or become aware of different things. And so I very much understand what you're talking about, and it's really powerful stuff. Really powerful stuff. So thank you for sharing, and let's go to just as a reminder, if you're new in here, you're not sure, you want to go to the question and answer sessions, you'll click on the session button on the left of your screen, and then you'll click on Mary's icon or plaque in there, and it'll take you into the question and answer sessions where you can share audio and or video, or audio if you don't want your face recorded, or you can type into the chat, or you can email questions that you might have for Mary, and the moderators in the background will let you into the chat, or will share your questions if you don't want to share them yourself. So everybody go to the sessions and get your questions ready for Mary.
I still can't hear you, Mavis, I'm afraid. Can I look at it? I see it on the side there. Can I answer that way? Is that all right? Okay, lost your light language. How can you regain it? This is what Mavis is saying. I think that a lot depends on how you are at the time, because the light language comes through when you're in a good place, when you're feeling centered, and when you're feeling more connected. But if you're going through a really difficult time, then sometimes it will be blocked for you. So it's about going back into that good space and meditating, and again requesting to be, in that beautiful integrated space, so that you can actually start bringing it in again. I hope that's answered your question, Mavis. You're always welcome to email me and we can talk some more about that. Thank you. Next question.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, Rose.
I feel in my heart that you had so much you wanted to share, and I just thought you kept apologizing. So what I wanted to suggest, is there anything in particular that you feel guided that you really wanted to share specifically with the group of people that are here right now? That's kind of what the question, because I feel like you went through it. So, and I know you feel inspired to share. So in your heart right now, collectively, for all of us that are watching right now, do you feel inspired to share anything in particular out of all the things you did share, if it's easy for you to do?
Thank you, Rose. Well, the main thing was that I really had little video clips that had frequencies in them, but I'm trusting that whatever was needed today was given to those that were ready for it. And it really is all about being ready energetically and spiritually for the frequencies. And I'm sure the ones that needed those frequencies will actually get the ones that they need. When I get a little bit frustrated because I have this great desire to give you the package, as it were, but I have this sense that whatever the package is needed, it's already being given out to those that are ready for it anyway. I do hope that what has been shown, and I am certain on another level, that everyone who's needed those frequencies have got what they've needed. So all I can say is that listen to how it is for you. Tune into what is significant for you in the presentation, and you will get exactly what it is that your highest intent requires.
Okay, we have a question. Emma, it says, brilliant talk. Thank you, Mary. How long do you think it will take for all of our DNA to be activated?
Very, very good question, and a fascinating one. I have no time frame for it other than I can say that this activation appears to be exponential at the moment. More and more people are contacting me that are having almost instant activations, and literally it's like it's been overnight. So what the sense is that the more that are activated, this exponentially activates more and more of humanity. And I don't know whether it's like the 100th monkey. We get to a certain level, then everybody gets it. And my sense is it's going to be something like that because of what's going on the planet now. We are getting this enormous awakening through the process of what is happening. And many of the children are talking to me about an event and the reset. And I think this is exactly where we're headed. And I suspect it's sooner rather than later. So this, for me, is what I think we've all come here to experience. So if you're listening to this presentation, without doubt, you've come here to be part of it. And it's, and it's going to be happening soon. I really believe that.
Okay, we have a question from Kim. She is requesting the link or information to find Matthew's CD.
Thank you. It's very easy to get into Matthew's CD. All you need to do is contact me and I will put you in touch with Matthew's mother, and she will be able to guide you to getting the whole CD. What's been brilliant is finally Matthew has been comfortable with putting it out there in this way. And he said it's got to be for those that are ready to wake up. So it's a very, very powerful medium for those that are prepared to go to that next level. But email me and you can get the contact that you need for Matthew's parent.
We have a question from Ruth. Please tell us about your website, which I had placed in the comments below. And she asked, do you give workshops?
Oh, absolutely. And it's really a lot of my work now appears to be for those that have been activated or awakening, and they're expanding their multidimensional abilities. Some of them are becoming more clairvoyant, clairaudient. Some of those are able to see energy fields, orbs of light, connecting with the beings, having downloads, etc., etc. But there are quite a few that ask to be able to manage it with confidence. And that seems to be one of the biggest issues for many of those that attend my workshops. They're almost there. They just need that extra little bit of informational tools to manage their abilities and their awareness, and to have confidence in it, to bring it more into a tangible space. because there are quite a few that get fearful. If I do this, will I be okay? Or, you know, will I get taken over, or will I go crazy? All those kinds of things, which is really valuable given the fact that we live in a society where the model of psychology doesn't allow for multidimensional abilities. So it's very understandable that people are cautious or wary, or because of the, you know, their belief system, for example, contradicts the importance of this, or makes it out to be a fearful thing, which it isn't. It's part of our heritage. We've just had it shut down due to our educational, scientific programming. So it's a matter of now understanding it, how it works, and really that it's part of who you are. So normalizing it, and a lot of my workshops are about normalizing this when people are activated. Thank you. Next question.
Okay, we have a question from Damien. Should we be interfering with the activation process within us? I struggle with this by trying too hard as a need for purpose.
Very good question, and thank you. I think that's one of the interesting things that many of those that come to see me or talk to me over the internet is they are trying too hard. And this is a natural process, and it's about, as you're opening up, you're trusting that superconscious self has it already in a program for you, and it's about trusting that. Some of them will say to me, well, I'm wondering if I'm on my mission, you know, am I doing what I need to do, and all the rest of it. And my answer is that your soul isn't going to let you miss the bus. It's worked too hard to get you to this point. What it means then is just trusting, even though you're not aware exactly what it is that's shifting and changing for you on a superconscious level. It is all happening through your intent and your desire to move to that other level. So it's about chilling. It's about sitting quietly and trusting that part of you that knows is taking you to where you need to be. And just whatever you sense or feel within yourself is your guidance to that place that you seek.
Okay, we have a question from Kelly. It says, Mary, what was the last name of the artist Cece?
Oh, Ceci. For those that want to know her story, it's in The New Human. What was fascinating about this wonderful artist in America was that over a number of years, I think she had over 100 plus artwork downloaded on every level of human knowledge, from science to anthropology to archaeology to metaphysics to whatever, huge downloads, which she has manifested into artwork, which allowed her to understand more of who and what we are as in terms of our origin, in terms of our multidimensional nature. All of these were downloaded and taught her more about what we call the hologram or the matrix. And what was interesting about her artwork, and many others that are bringing this artwork in, is they're activating the subconscious, superconscious self, and activating our own awareness. And what I wasn't able to share was Terry Mace, who is a psychotherapist, had an extremely powerful reaction to this artwork, where he realized that he had been taught and trained to translate it into its multidimensional programs. And he found he was downloaded with huge amounts of data merely from seeing this artwork, not only just Ceci's, but Tracy Taylor's as well. And this is what's happening. There are many translators out there, including a little 7-year-old, which I was unable to show you, where he explains what he got from seeing Tracy Taylor's artwork. He explained right away that he knew what it was and what it was indicating. And he was talking about the beings coming to this planet through portals. And this amazed his mother, who was just showing him the artwork because she was curious to see his reaction. And he said, oh, these are from the aliens, right away. And he said, and this is what this one means. And this is what this one means. And she wrote to me saying it actually scared me how much he actually knew, because she hadn't front loaded him. She just said, what do you make of these pretty artwork here? And he went to decode them and talked about the portals and how the craft come in through the pyramid portals and what have you. And that was what I found so incredible, is that these new children, these new generations coming in, as Lee Capitelli talks about the new generations from particularly 2000, they're being born awake, and they're being misunderstood by the fact that they're different. And the metaphysicians call them indigos, crystals, children of light, etc. They're also diagnosed and labeled as ADHD, Asperger's, some forms of autism, dyslexia. What is not being understood by mainstream is these are new programs of human that are wired differently, and they can't and are not meant to be programmed into our inaccurate 3D reality. They are here to not only activate us, but to actually change the whole fabric of how we understand reality. And they are accessing all this extra data, and they are seeing more and experiencing more. And I talk about this in depth in The New Human, and what we need to do to support them, because these children are highly sensitive. Many of them are very empathic. They remember their past lives on other planets, and they talk about, and I can go on to some of the information that they talk about, why they've come here. As one young, I think he was 10, he's 10, who said that his understanding of the planet that he came from, this is his first life incarnation on planet Earth, and he's a center seed connecting to the planet to actually change the pollution and shift the pollution on this planet. So they're coming in with conscious memory of their mission and mandate, and this is why we need to recognize them in our children and understand what's going on to support them.
Oh, hi, Mary. Can you hear me? Hi.
Yes.
Did you read some of Dolores's work? I just want to ask that question first. I'm assuming you did.
What I'd like to say about Dolores, and the reason I've put her in there, is she was a wonderful facilitator for awakening, for activation, through her books and through her work globally. And we met a number of times over the years. She came to my home and talked to experiences there. We've met at many, many conferences, and she was a shining light. And I believe she's still a shining light, probably from where she is in whatever dimension she is now, still doing her wonderful work in the way she did when she was on this planet. Thank you.
And we have a question. Let me get it here. We have a question from Rhonda. It says, do you have a book or video that explains more about the frequencies in DNA?
Well, the book, The New Human, talks about the frequencies and also awakening. But I've done many presentations like this one where I speak about the frequencies. And the video that you saw with Rochelle speaking has 5 stories on it. And Rochelle talks about the frequencies, the star language, how she came to be activated, and how the healing activates DNA. So that is particularly good for those that want all those frequencies. And of course, I've done many presentations where you'll see that as well.
Okay, and we're going to bring another one on here. It looks like a question here.
Let me finish this time, okay? Don't let me leave. The reason why I asked about Dolores was because of the fact that Dolores referred to imprints. And what I'm trying to ask is, with these young souls that are their first experience here on Earth, is there a possibility that they have needed to take imprints to be able to be on Earth? Did you come across that information? That was the reason why I referred to Dolores initially. So that could be why the sound kind of blocked out, because that wasn't my full question. So did you come across this information?
Rose, not from the children. Okay. Interestingly, the young man that said it was his first Earth incarnation, he said his mother had multiple lifetimes on this planet, so he relied on her to help him understand the human the human soul and being here on this planet. So he relied on her to educate him into being human.
Okay. Do we possibly have any more questions anybody would like to ask? Oh, here we have another question. I'll bring her on. Can you hear us, Roxanne?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we sure can. Go ahead with your question.
Mary, I'm wondering if you could elaborate a little more on the Aborigines and the Sioux language connection.
I'm not familiar with the Sioux connection, but I do know in Australia, and I wasn't able to show a wonderful picture by an Indigenous artist that explains about the beings that come from the Seven Sisters, where they believe they come from, and how they visit regularly to their mobs, as they call them. They don't call them tribes; they call them mobs here in Australia. But how they've been visited over right from the beginning of time, the dream time, by many of these different beings that come and regularly interact with them and show them the sacred places. I wasn't able to go into that, sadly, today, but I mean, in some of my other presentations, some of the artwork explains how they have visited, how they show them where water is. They've shown them how to grow food and where to be in those sacred places in Australia. And she describes all of that in that wonderful piece of artwork that I will show. But I can always send it to anyone, a picture of that, if they're interested. Thank you.
We have a question here from Damien. Do you have any information on, I'm going to try to pronounce this, Lyrans, Lyrans? I apologize if I didn't pronounce that right.
We all have different ways of pronouncing things. The Lyrans, which I understand are primarily feline beings, and some others may have a different take on that. What I need to say is that lots of those that contact me have connection with the Lyrans. They're line beings as well, mantis beings, crystalline beings, beings of light, lots of different forms of humanoid and what have you. I think the important thing to understand is that as your DNA gets activated, the DNA of these particular star families is being activated too. So as your frequency rises, it activates those particular origins in our DNA. And that's why so many people start to say, I think my origin is Arcturus, or it's Andromeda, or it's Orion, or it's Sirius, because that part of their DNA from that particular origin is being activated by the frequencies. And that's why also a lot of the hybrids say the same thing, that they have more of that DNA and it's being activated, and that's why they connect to it. So, we've got amazing number of these intelligences that are connected to us through our genetic ancestry. And this is what's coming out more and more now, and why we're getting this wonderful activation, because I believe they're preparing us to go to another level of awareness where we become more telepathic and we can connect with them in the cosmic community. Thank you.
Okay, we have Alex that is asking what the title of your book about the frequencies and DNA was called again.
The New Human. It's the New Human is about not just about the children, but the teenagers, the artwork, but also it covers how we ourselves are being activated through our DNA. And I talk on length in several chapters about the DNA.
Okay, and now we have a question from Emma. Could you please let us know your own story of how and when you started on this journey of awakening and then the teaching?
Well, I'll keep it very precise. I started out as a nurse midwife, but due to having a family, I ended up in counseling and doing hypnosis. To cut a long story short, about 25 years ago, a gentleman walked in the door and he told me he had encounters with non-human intelligences. Everyone thought he was crazy, and he heard that I was open-minded. Thankfully, I had been on a journey myself all through my life. I think I've always been curious and wanting to know the truth. So if there was a mystery, I usually had a book on it. And I found that really that's been invaluable in my life, because what it did was educate me into understanding we're more than our physical container. And through my work, doing hypnosis, past lives with individuals, through much research, I think it's been a process of awakening probably most of my life, except for when I finally started to realize that it wasn't just special people that were clairvoyant and clairaudient and clairsentient, which I thought was gifted. What I discovered was, through my own journey to awakening spiritually and metaphysically, was that we're all able to access the multidimensional world. And that was a revelation for me, because I thought I was far too normal to do that. But I found out that given the right environment and the right teaching, this is something we can all participate in and be activated into. You've just got to want to do it. You've just got to have the intent. So my awakening came through a process of being through my life, but also through the training that I had in a wonderful group where I was shown how to activate and connect to that multidimensional part of myself. And nobody was more surprised than me when I found out that it actually was real, and it was and that I could do it. And that's what I do a lot of now, is showing others just how simple it is and how it's very much part of our nature to be multidimensional. It's just that it's been shut down for many through our education and our programming.
Okay, and there's a few more questions. Do you want to go ahead and answer some more questions?
Oh, I've got a little bit more time for sure.
We have here, we have a Helen asking about beings living in the Area 51.
So really the question is about, are there some of these beings in Area 51?
Yes, she asked, what about the beings living in Area 51?
Okay. I only know whistleblower information, so I can't categorically say if I know anything about them, other than there has been information that there are. How many of them are actually extraterrestrial and how many are cloned, programmed life forms, I don't know, because I know that there are life forms that have been cloned from some of these beings, the Greys, for example, and the reptilians particularly. Some of them are being cloned and are programmed life forms. So apart from that, the ones that are truly extraterrestrial, I really have no information on, but I can't discount it because there have been some that have actually seen them.
We have one here from Rico. It says, did you have any information also, another word I might mispronounce, Aldebarans, ALDEBERANS? I don't know if I pronounced that right.
In other words, do I know about them?
Do you have any information about them?
I don't have any that's particularly come through specific, other than there have been a number of those that have come to me that are very aware of their connection to that star system. And what is fascinating to me, and has been all along, is how many of those around the globe that are having extraordinary experiences from every country. And for a lot of them, they don't talk about it because of the belief system of their family or their religious beliefs. or the cultural beliefs. And so the only time it comes out often is when they feel in a safe place where they can discuss, this is another aspect of their life, and it's been an aspect of their life forever, but they've never ever talked about it. And this is why now is wonderful, because so many are coming out and owning their experiences, and particularly those that we would see as very credible, you know, physicists, lawyers, doctors, nurses. I've had celebrities are coming out and sharing their truth. And when people ask me about disclosure, I believe, is going to be from the ground up. And it's going to be all those beautiful, brave, courageous souls like Dr. Lena Olson and many others that are coming out, and they're sharing their truth and actually saying, you know, guys, the emperor has no clothes. So it's time now. And I think that's how disclosure is going to happen, from the multitudes of people that are having these experiences. And we are going to be bowled over by the connections that people have. And that's what I think is all part of this now, this awakening. Thank you.
We have a question here from Lance. It says, could you tell us about any healing technologies?
What is fascinating about the healing technologies is that many of those that are coming in and have been through several generations with healing abilities, and their technologies is using the frequencies. As you saw with Rochelle, she's using star language or light language, bringing in the frequencies to activate and rebalance and heal through those frequencies. So that's a technology. But there are other ways that technology is coming in, and that's often through downloads with those that are being told how to create new technologies and understanding new technologies with these downloads from physics to the origin of the species to new knowledge. There are, I think, many thousands and possibly millions of people now that are downloading through their connection to these beings, just like Jimmy Jones, the pilot, who's downloading a huge amount of spiritual information that he had no knowledge of prior to his interaction with this ball of light, this intelligence that is connected to him. This is happening globally now. And, you know, they're coming out like Jimmy and speaking their truth. And that is all part of these new healing technologies. They're coming in many ways.
We have a question, looks like from a Gina. It says, my now adult son has dyslexia and ADD. He is awakening all at once, seeing other beings shifting or auras around people and experiencing massive life changes. It has been very difficult. Are you seeing others with similar experiences now?
Absolutely, Alex. And what has been very much part of my reason for writing The New Human is the first 9 chapters are about children. And, you know, many of them have been diagnosed as ADHD, etc., seeing energy fields, seeing orbs, communicating with the beings, having their special friend that takes them at night and teaches them things about their awareness, for example. And what I've tried to do as much as possible is support the parents so they can understand what's going on. Many of them are experiencers anyway, but connecting parents and connecting children so that they can share with other parents that are having this going on so they don't feel quite so alone. And more than anything, for the children to connect to other children that are having similar experiences so they don't feel isolated and don't feel that you know, they're just the weird one or whatever. This has to happen. We have to do more of that connecting. And I know also other groups that are supporting the children. There's one in America where the lady there is supporting a whole range of children from 8 to 16 with these experiences. And they are able to share openly about what they're seeing, what they're experiencing, how they're understanding their reality. The more we listen to the children, we can find out what we need to do to support them as they are learning how to be human, because many of them, this might be their first time, but also supporting them on the level of being practical in looking after their health, looking after their emotional and psychological well-being, and listening to them and what they need. And that was very much part of the main part of the New Human. I've got several chapters where I resource educators as well as professionals, health professionals, and what best to do with these children that are so awake.
Okay, and we have from Jessica, there seems to be a high concentration of, of stories and connections to the Pleiades, and a distinct Pleiadian, sorry if I pronounce these wrong, culture. Are they more ancient or more significant for some reason?
My understanding of the Pleiades is that there are many of those that are connecting that to that those star systems, feeling like they've got a deep connection to the Pleiadian culture, or they have been Pleiadian. One of the things that's happening with awakening is more and more as our DNA gets activated, or the DNA of that particular star system that was encoded in our DNA when we were intelligently created by these different beings, is that as we reached a certain level of awareness, as Dr. Crick said, we then get new understanding of who we are and who they are, who are our genetic ancestors. And so the Pleiades is actually very connected to many, many people, because it was one of the major, if you like, DNA connections that we have to the star species. So all I can say is that that is why we're hearing so much about the Pleiades now, is that many of the souls that have incarnated now and, in the last, 50 to 100 years have had that part of them activated. And that's why they feel so connected to the Pleiadian origins and culture.
Okay. Looks like that was possibly the last question. If anybody possibly has any more questions that they might like to put in the chat. Okay, it looks like that might complete the questions from the audience. And we thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much, Brandy, and for facilitating this. And thank you, everyone, for your wonderful questions. And I'm on email. If anything else comes up for you, let me know. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute.
Thank you.
Thank you.